Okay, so it is time for my midweek reading vlog. This is the second week of April, and well, it's been an interesting week so far. Let's start off talking about the road being paved with many boring adventures. I am so sorry to everyone who loves this series, but it's just not catching my attention. This is The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien, the first book in the Lord of the Rings series. Now, if you've been following my channel, you know that last week I read The Hobbit, and I did not really overall enjoy it at all. I ended up giving it 2 stars. I did end up watching the 3 films that are associated with that book, and I enjoyed them more than the book itself, but didn't really enjoy them overall, and I'm having the same feeling with The Fellowship of the Ring. Excuse me. It's not to say this isn't a good enough book, because it's fine, and I can see why a lot of people would love it, but I don't know, for me, there's just something about Tolkien's writing style. I think maybe what it is for me is that his writing style is a little bit too simplistic for me, and while the adventures that the crew, let's call them, go on throughout the stories are nice enough, they're just, I don't know, they're just not grabbing me. One thing I do appreciate about this book compared to The Hobbit, though, is that commentary does not seem to be there as much as it was in The Hobbit. In The Hobbit, there was a lot of... It was written in a narration style where there would be moments where Tolkien would take you out of the plot to discuss his own thoughts and feelings on what's going on. So let's say that Paul met Mary down the street. He would suddenly stop and then say, now, you and I both know that Mary is a bad person, but since Mary's not going to be a bad person till the end of the book, let us now go back and see what Paul and Mary are talking about. And I found that annoying. It doesn't come up, either it doesn't come up in this book or not as much. I'm getting really, right towards the end of this one. But yeah, the quest is just too simplistic as far as I'm concerned. The movies are great. I'm not going to give them more than 3 stars because they just don't do for me what I enjoy and appreciate out of fantasy. For me, I love fantasies that are either written or filmed, if it's a filming medium, with magic in them. And while there is a wizard that is predominantly featured in this series, he doesn't seem to do a lot of magic at all. And there are times where I can't help but think, there are moments where the crew in this book get into all sorts of trouble, and I just think, you've got a wizard there. Like, why isn't he just using his magic to get them out of trouble? And it's just annoying me. I'm sorry. So, to all the J.R.R. Tolkien fans out there, particularly of the Lord of the Rings series, including The Hobbit, I apologize. I really wanted to love this series, but I'm just not loving it. Now, one thing you guys who do love this series have going for you is that I granted The Hobbit, this book 1, book 2, and book 3 immunity this month. No matter what, I'm reading all of them. I will get through all of them. But I'm just so happy to say that I'm so close to being halfway through. Once I've read this one, I will have read 2 books and have 2 more to go. And I was considering whether or not I'm going to read the Silmarillion. I think that's how it's pronounced. But the way things are going, I'm definitely not going to be reading the Silmarillion. Now, Silmarillion, I think it's pronounced actually. So, this is where I'm at. So this being the beginning, this being the end. So I'm really close to the end. I'm actually up to page 321, and I'm actually further than that because 321 is the beginning of chapter 5, and I've gotten a bit further than that. Actually, I've read a little bit of chapter 5, but this book ends on page 407, so I'm really close to being done with this book, and I'm really happy about that. So far, my journey in April seems to be me from Monday to Wednesday reading a J.R.R. Tolkien book and trying to just finish the book and be done with it, and then I enjoy the rest of the week and everything else that I'm reading. So yeah, not really enjoying this book, and it's not that J.R.R. Tolkien is doing anything wrong. I just don't think I'm the target audience at all for this series. If he were to have a lot more magic be at the center of his stories, maybe I would enjoy them more, but he doesn't, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just not appreciating it enough, but it's just not doing it for me at the moment. So let's move on to the second thing that I'm reading this month, and that is this book, Stephen King's fantasy book, The Eyes of the Dragon. Now, I am loving this book, and I did the same thing last week where I was showing The Hobbit saying I didn't like that and picked up the second book I was reading going, I love this book, but I can't help it. In comparison to The Fellowship of the Ring, this is just such a great book. So here's where I'm at. I'm not that far in. I'm about 122 pages in to this. Just trying to find out how many pages there are. 380 page book. So I'm really not that far in. But that's because I'm prioritizing with this one and trying to get this finished so I can try and enjoy the rest of the week. Yeah, unlike this book does feature magic quite predominantly, and I really appreciate Stephen King's writing style. Something that I really didn't get across to you guys last month when I was talking about Pet Sematary and the Something Stories of Bad Dreams, the compendium that I was reading, is that Stephen King, while he is most known for being a writer of horror fiction, his horror fiction really doesn't scare me, which I thought that it should, and it doesn't. But that's not to say that I don't appreciate Stephen King as an author, because I think that he is a really good writer, and I love most of the plots that he writes. He's a bit out there with certain things that he does write, which makes a lot of his work either YA or adult. I don't, excuse me, I don't know if, just a moment. Okay, apologies there, just had to go and check on something. So I don't think that Stephen King has written a middle grade book, and if he has, it would be interesting to read it, because a lot of the things that he writes have adult themes to them, and anyone who's read a Stephen King book can tell you that. And it's not just what you would expect, like horrific moments. There are words that he uses in his writing that make them adult writing. But anyway, this book is really amazing, and it's what I thought, not specifically the book itself, but what I hoped to gain from the book, and what I was kind of expecting to gain from the book is what I'm gaining from the book. I'm getting an amazing plot, and it's because Stephen King is a good writer. Because this is a fantasy book, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm just having a lot of fun with this book at the moment. And I think maybe, just maybe, part of it could be because I'm reading it alongside The Fellowship of the Ring that I'm really not enjoying. But yeah, I'm just really enjoying this book. So I can't tell you much, obviously, because I don't want to give away any spoilers, but basically this book is set in a castle. I'm loving my royal books. You guys know this. I read the selection last week and gave it 5 stars. So, but that book was a dystopian romance. This is a fantasy. So it is set in a royal kingdom where we're introduced to all the characters. Stephen King does this really well. The chapters are incredibly short, but at the beginning he took time to introduce as many of the characters as he can in as much detail as he possibly could. So he introduces the king, the queen, they have 2 kids, he introduces them, everyone gets their own chapter, we get to know all of them, and the king also has this advisor, I guess, and I don't remember his name, now I do, Flag. And Flag is a magician, at least that's what we're being led to believe, is that he's a magician, but he's very mysterious. He's always wearing a hood over his face and talking very lowly with a hiss every time he talks, and I'm just loving this book. I'm lapping it up. So yeah, part of me wants to get back to this book tonight, but I'm not going to. I'm going to keep going with this one, get it finished. and permanently put it aside so I can then fully get stuck into this one. But the setup of this book has been absolutely amazing and I've been enjoying it every single step of the way. So brava, Stephen King. I think I found a niche that works for me and you, Stephen King fantasy as opposed to Stephen King horror. In saying that, I have not read It yet, and a lot of people have said if you want to be scared, read It and then get back to me. So maybe I'll put It onto my May TBR. We'll see how we go. If you think I should add It to my May TBR, let me know in the comments below. The next thing I want to talk to you guys about is what I am going to be reading for the remainder of the week. Now, I did say in my April TBR, as well as in my end of week wrap up for week 1, that the third book I was going to be reading this week was going to be a book by Jessica Cluess called A Shadow Bright and Burning. I'm no longer going to be doing that, and this change happened very recently. In fact, it happened less than an hour ago, so this is hot off the presses. Mr. Francy will not be reading A Shadow Bright and Burning this month because of reasons that I'm just not going to go into at the moment, but I'm just not going to be reading that book. Which is sad, but it is what it is. If I get time to read it next month, then I'll put it onto my May TBR, but it's just not going to be happening for this week, nor for this month. So what am I going to be reading instead? Well, here we go. It is Christopher Paolini's Eragon. Now, this is a series that a lot of people seem to love. I have the feeling it might be polarizing. Maybe some people don't love it, who knows, but the majority of people that I've spoken to and the little research I've done on this, people tend to love the Eragon series, and they tend to at least love the first book. This is an adventure fantasy, and I'm going to say that it's a YA, but don't quote me on that because I haven't done enough research. I think it might even be middle grade, although it's a pretty hefty book. Yeah, so it's a tome. It's over 500 pages, so... Then again, I did read a middle grade book that was 500 pages last month, and that book got 5 stars, so I did enjoy it. So my point is, I guess it is possible to have tomes that are middle grade tomes, but very much looking forward to reading this one, and it's a very heavy fantasy week this week. I don't know if I have any books on my TBR for April that aren't fantasy, but anyway, I'm just realizing that everything's fantasy. There's no sci-fi, no horror, no thriller, none of that. In fact, last week I had a thriller on my TBR, The Girl on the Train, which I really enjoyed the wrap-up of and the reveal for, but this week it's all fantasy. So, what are my plans for the rest of this week in case you wanted to buddy read along with me? Well, for the rest of tonight and tomorrow, I'm going to be focusing fully on finishing off this book, The Fellowship of the Ring, so I can be done with it and I can say I've read this book and it's done and put it aside and not have to think about The Lord of the Rings for the rest of the week. And trust me, that's going to make me incredibly happy. Part of me wants to just grab the next 2 books in the series and just read both of them next week so I'm done with them and get them out the way, but I won't. I'll stick to reading 1 a week, like I said. So that's my focus for the next 48 hours, get this book done. If it's not done tonight, it will absolutely be done tomorrow, and then I will be done with this book. And then you'll get a review on this book with spoiler and non-spoiler thoughts. What did I think? What did I rate it? All that stuff, all that jazz. Then I'm going to be fully focusing on this book, Stephen King's The Eyes of the Dragon, and so today is Wednesday, so I will definitely be reading this book tomorrow on Thursday, hopefully wrapping it up on Friday. We'll see how we go, and really enjoying it, as I said. And then alongside The Eyes of the Dragon, I'm going to be reading Eragon, so I'll be reading this from... not tomorrow, the day after, from Friday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'll be reading Eragon, and it's a lot to get through over the course of 3 days, but we'll see how we go. It's funny because I DNF'd a book that I think was like 400 pages to pick up a book that's 500 pages to read in 3 days, so that's a lot to get through, but I will do my best and hopefully get through it by the time we get to the midweek, not midweek, to the end of week wrap up for week 2. So, try and hold these up. These are my books that I'm reading this week. Fellowship of the Ring, The Eyes of the Dragon, and Aragon. I will leave that there and let you guys go. Peace, blessings, and so much love. Please do stay safe during this lockdown. Yeah, please stay safe, guys. And yeah, just so much love and blessings to everyone here at this time. I hope that you're getting through it as best as you can. Keep on reading, yeah? I post videos every Wednesday and Sunday with reviews in between, and I'll see you at the end of the week to talk to you about how all this went. Well, that wasn't good. How all this went. Till then, mwah. Happy reading as always. Bye, guys. Bye.